I didn't expect to see anybody.
I'm not back from the grave, you know.
Good evening, Mrs. Munson.
What are you doing here? Good evening, Doris. Why aren't you in Mallorca?
Because I'm here.
If you love listening to this show, please consider giving a rating and a review on Amazon Alexa or wherever you listen. We want to continue bringing you this amazing content, and part of our ability to do that means that we need a big audience. Now, it may not seem like much, but rating and reviewing the show will help more people find us, just like how you found this show. Simply on any podcast platform, search for our show, scroll down to the bottom, and push 5 stars. It's that easy. Thanks for supporting the show. Today, I'm joined by Rich Gurman, who is the founder of Project Go. And Project Go is a nonprofit dedicated to protecting the ocean and marine wildlife. Rich, thanks for joining today.
So glad to be here, man. I'm excited to share with you.
All right. Well, by the way, before we get into too deep, is you are in Southern California, right? What city specifically?
I'm in Laguna Beach, California, about an hour south of LA.
Yeah, I'm smirking because it's probably one of my favorite beaches in Southern California. So the fact that you live there, I'm already having a hard time with that.
Don't tell anyone about it. We could have done this in person, man. Next time.
All right. So of course, your background, very interesting background. You've paddleboarded over 7,500 hours on water, spanning some 23,000 miles. So I'm just trying to get a gauge of what does that mean over how many years? And then, of course, specifically, how do you prepare for that? And what are some potential stories that you can share with us?
Yeah. So basically, every day for the past 10 years, I go out in the morning. I never schedule anything before noon because I pretty much spend my mornings out on the ocean right here. And it started as a hobby. It just was a beautiful, Laguna Beach. So at first I would go out there and I'd paddle, and it was just interesting to see the coastline from the opposite view. Normally you're on land looking at the ocean. Now I'm on the ocean looking at the land. It was beautiful. And then as I continued to do it every day, I started seeing dolphins, and then I started seeing whales, and the creator in me who likes to capture moments, I started to bring a camera out there and I would take photographs. Then I got fancy and I put a GoPro on my hat and I'd shoot video. And at the beginning, it was just purely a hobby. And it's funny to hear those numbers because you say, like, it's probably more now, I don't know, maybe 25,000 miles that I've paddled. And the circumference of the Earth is 29,401. So I figure in the next couple of years, I will have paddled the entire circumference of the planet. But the reality is I've done it all right here within a few mile area of Laguna Beach. So it's kind of the same area that I paddle every day. So it completely started as a hobby. I would paddle every day. I would capture these moments. I'd post them on Facebook, and everybody seemed to love they like and comment on the photos and the videos. And it was fun to share because a lot of these people, most people, my audience is really twofold. It's people who are crazy about dolphins and whales like myself, and then it's people who live inland who would never have that experience. And they love kind of seeing it vicariously, I think, through my eyes. And it purely started as a hobby. And then you wanted a story, as you mentioned. So it was 5 years ago. I, at that point, had paddled with so many different species of dolphins and whales. So like we have bottlenose dolphins that live right here in Laguna Beach that I see every day. We have hundreds of thousands of common dolphins which live in the area in Southern California, and they're out there every day. Like 5 different species of dolphins commonly I'll see. And then whales. So we have gray whales that migrate through the area every year. We have humpback whales. In fact, 2 minutes before we went live, I was looking through my binoculars and there's a humpback whale sitting right out there a couple miles offshore. We even have blue whales that come here in the summer, the largest animal ever to have lived on the planet. They're 100 feet long, as big as 2 school buses. And I've probably had 75 or so encounters with blue whales right off the shores here. And up until 5 years ago, the only the only species that I had literally been dreaming about, I would have dreams that I would be with them, that I had not experienced in reality, was orcas. And so it was January 6, 2015. I saw a report that there was a pod of 4 orcas off the coast of Long Beach, which is about 30 miles north of where I'm sitting now. And at the end of the day, they were seen heading south in this direction. So the next day I paddle out, and it was actually in the afternoon, and it was in January. So it's now January 7th, and it gets dark super early. And I look out and I see about 8 boats sitting about 2 miles offshore. And I'm like, I can make it out there, and just maybe that's the orcas. And I know if there's boats just sitting there, most likely they're on something, they're watching something. Where boats are like whale boats, if they're moving, then they're looking for something. So I took my shot, paddled out 2 miles, and this pod of 4 orcas was right there. And these orcas came right at me. One of them was super curious, came under my board like 3 different times. And the conditions were just pristine, and I just caught this like pristine video of this entire encounter. And this was not only amazing because it was me with these 4 wild orcas, dubbed killer whales, but to me they're just big dolphins. I would have actually jumped in the water with them if there wasn't so many people watching. But that was the turning point moment, because that video went crazy viral. Like I actually waited. I had that video and I waited a couple days. I'm like, oh gosh, it was such a like intimate moment. I'm like, maybe I'll just keep this for myself. And I showed a couple friends of mine, and they're like, no, dude, this is way too cool. You have to share this with the world. So I put it on my personal Facebook page, and it went crazy viral. It was on the news that night, and then the next morning, all 3 news channels, ABC, NBC, CBS, contacted me and said that every affiliate nationwide wanted to run the story. I gave them permission to, and it literally just went global overnight. And the real turning point wasn't that. That was fun. But the next day, I was sitting right here at this desk, and in one morning, I got contacted by PETA, Save the Whales, Mission Blue, Blackfish, The Cove, and a couple other organizations. Like every organization that I ever would have wanted to connect with, all contacted me. And that was my aha moment. Like, okay, this is not just a coincidence. That's the moment where my love for these animals turned into a passion to protect the ocean and the sacred life that lives in it.
Well, you could definitely thank the orcas for that. And I'm just thinking, because you've been, paddling out there for so many years, that you probably likely see the same groups of, different types of dolphins and whales to an extent. Maybe have you even named some of these as your own?
That's funny you asked that, because I kind of have. There's I've probably had, I'm going to say 2,000, we'll call it, encounters with dolphins and whales in the past decade. And the most common encounter that I have is with bottlenose dolphins, because they will swim literally within like 200 yards of shore, and they live here. They're local. So they just go up and down the coast all day long. So of my, let's call it 2,000 encounters, probably over 1,000 have been with bottlenose. And they recognize me. They come right up to me, and I definitely recognize them. So there's a few, I will admit, that I've given names to.
Well, I'm sure from the other side, probably the dolphins are telling their buddies, "Hey, there's this strange guy that is always out there. Come join us on our next pilgrimage."
Maybe.
All right, let's talk about Project Go. What is it? Why did you just start it? What are you trying to accomplish through Project Go?
So the morning I was sitting at my desk and all these organizations contacted me, I was literally in tears. Like just everything in my being was like, you've discovered your soul's calling, for lack of a better term. Like this is what you are supposed to do. And before that, I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. I've been a business coach for 20 years. And in that moment, I was like, okay, I'm going to create a book. Everybody for years was saying, oh, you should make a book of all your photos. And I always said, no, I'm not going to make a book, because then all of a sudden it becomes a business, and the ocean to me is sacred. It's my church. I don't want to commingle those two. But in that moment, I said, I'm going to make a book, which is probably sitting right here, called Blue Laguna, a bunch of photos. It's a photo book. And I also created Project O, our nonprofit. And the reality, Scott, for the first couple of years, I honestly didn't know. It was super frustrating because I didn't know what Project O was going to be. And then I just had this, it just kind of came to me. I said, what if we create a certification program where we certify cities all around the world, essentially for following best practices when it comes to protecting the ocean and waterways? And I came up with the name Blue City. We always hear about, going green. I said, well, what about the ocean? Let's go blue. So the idea was born to create the Blue City certification program. I then used my expertise in business. What I do in my main business, it's all about collaboration. I teach people how to do joint ventures and how to work together. It's all about working together, collaborating versus competing. And I said, well, let's take those techniques and bring them into the nonprofit world. I was able to successfully pull together a bunch of top nonprofits like Oceana, Surfrider, Plastic Pollution Coalition, Inland Ocean Coalition, Monterey Bay Aquarium, California Coast Keepers, and others. We're all working together. And it took a long time, but we created a pretty amazing criteria that we decided that if a city were to follow these steps, implement these practices, that it would make a super positive impact in their local cities. And I'm super excited to say we were a little delayed in launching it based on the madness going on in the world, but we just recently launched the pilot version of it, and we're just super excited. We're starting right along the coast here in California, but the goal is to move inland and then eventually make it a global certification program.
Yeah, this is a very exciting, and I'm glad that you mentioned some of the organizations that you have collaborated with and co-authored to architect that framework, because that was exactly the question I was going to ask. So the next step is, how do we take this from a kind of a regional-based initiative to more of a international standard? So in other words, working with the likes of
Yes.
UN and other types of NGOs to bring that certification to the next level, so that when governments and NGOs talk about what does it mean to have smart, sustainable cities, this is one of the key criteria, just like we have the LEED standards for buildings as an example.
Exactly. So right now we're in the pilot phase of it, and we're just really trying to dial it in. And then I think you're asking the right question. How do we exponentially grow it? How do we scale it? And the whole idea is this: our initial cities are pretty much our low-hanging fruit cities that are all about sustainability, and they're already doing a lot of the right things. The challenge will become when we go inland. Like, I want to take this to Akron, Ohio, where a lot of the things that are being done in San Diego and Los Angeles and in Laguna Beach are like well beyond what they are doing. And the reality is, everything that people do inland when it comes to water and waste, everything affects the ocean. And everywhere there's different waterways, and all waterways lead to the ocean. So right now we're really trying to dial it in. And then the plan is to scale it, like I said, not only nationally, but globally. And really, the cities that we will certify will become models for other cities all around the world to follow. So we're really looking at it. It's really a three-prong approach. We are looking at policy change. If you were to look at, well, what's going to make the biggest difference, it's probably that. If a city says, example, we're going to ban all single-use plastics, can't sell them anywhere in our city anymore, and that becomes, policy, that's going to make an impact. So policy is number one. Two is working with businesses, kind of like you just mentioned. If we're working with businesses and incentivizing them to make changes that will help energy efficiency or things like that, that's going to make a difference. And then the third prong is working with citizens. So we want local people to be proud that their city is being certified and they're a blue city. So we're really hitting it from all three angles. Does that make sense?
Super,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I really like the point that you brought up, which is the kind of the inner landlocked areas, whether it's in the U.S. or outside, that don't have a direct connection or don't see the correlation with what they're doing to the ocean.
Yes.
To really kind of bring that together and show them that it's really connected, even if it's not at the surface in terms of waterways. Below at the water table level and others, it still permeates. It does flow out. Last question, I think we're almost out of time here, is a lot of the polluters that has a direct impact to the oceans are actually in underdeveloped as well as emerging nations. So we think about places like Indonesia, the Philippines, Thailand, India as an example, fairly heavy polluters, really just no lack of regard in terms of conservation and protection of the oceans. How do we tackle that, given the fact that even their governments are fairly lackadaisical?
It's a great question. I think it boils down to economics, and that's part of what we're looking at. Is even like you're mentioning third world countries, but even if you look at some of the great polluters, they're American companies also. And I don't want to like shame any specific companies, but there's companies that are obviously part of the problem. And if we could show, in my mind, if we can show either a developing country or a large corporation that's adding to the problem, if we could show them that there's an alternative that, number one, will make them a champion of the environment, which will be great for them from that respect, and also it's going to save them a lot of money, right? At the end of the day, a lot of this is going to boil down to economics, and I think we can make a real change. So that's a lot of what we're looking at also, is how can a company operate differently, create a product that's more eco-friendly, that will make them appealing to consumers, and then also it's going to save them money. So I think it's really working directly with the companies and countries, to your point, and with the consumers. If enough consumers say, we don't want your plastic product, as an example, we want another alternative. If enough people say that, then they have no choice but to make some changes. So these are big issues for sure. But, I think we're really coming from a grassroots approach, working with cities on a local basis, and then hoping to go global with this, as I said.
Super. So Rich, tell us how can people find out more about Project Go? And then also additionally, for those that are really interested in seeing dolphins or whales in the wild, any tips that you would recommend for them?
Oh, gosh. Yeah. So our website is project-o.org. And you'll see more information on what we're talking about. If you want to follow me personally, because pretty much on my social media, all I ever do is post photos and videos that we've been talking about here. So on Facebook, just look up Rich Gurman. On Instagram, it's Rich Gurman LB. If you want to do what I do, wow, I mean, your best bet for most people is probably coming to a place like Laguna and hiring a company to take you either on a small whale boat, or if you want to paddleboard, there's companies that'll take you on tours paddleboarding. I don't normally take people out myself, so don't ask me, please. But I'll take you out, Scott. Now that I know you love Laguna Beach, you got to come visit. We'll head out there together.
Super. So with that, I've been joined by Rich Gurman, who is the founder of Project Go. Thanks for joining today.
Thank you.
If you've enjoyed this episode, take a moment to rate our show on any podcast platform that you listen to. Scroll down to the bottom and push 5 stars. It's that easy. And as always, thanks for listening.